Back in 2009, I was having lunch in a restaurant when I heard that familiar sound of a siren approaching. As that warning grew louder, I began to see the reflections of the flashing lights. And I looked up to see a fire engine pull into the parking lot, and then to my surprise, pull up right in front of the deli where I was eating. I would soon learn that right next door, someone had collapsed and was lying unconscious and unresponsive. I was a veteran 30-year firefighter, the fire chief in that community at the time. And I was just feet away from a cardiac arrest victim, but completely unaware of their peril. Now, had I witnessed that collapse, I would have started CPR, would have used a nearby public defibrillator, an AED, and I likely would have made a big difference in the outcome. This was a startling event for me. You know, it's hard to even put it into a single word like that. I was embarrassed. I felt guilty about it. But I think more than anything, I was surprised that I could be unaware of something so serious happening so close by. Yet when I thought about it, it was easy to see how it could happen. Maybe somebody on the floor above me, just 10 feet away in an office cubicle above, or somebody on the floor below me in the lobby. Or maybe the business next door, somebody at the dry cleaners 3 doors down from the Starbucks where I was waiting in line for a cup of coffee. Or even in my home, maybe that was my next door neighbor. And just think about the space we're in and the space around us. Even though they're so close by and the need is so great, you know, we can't see through these walls and we can't see the need to act. In the United States alone, more than 1,000 people a day die from cardiac arrest. More people die from cardiac arrest than the top 10 cancers combined. And it's equal opportunity. It's all races, all ages, all fitness levels, even top athletes suffer cardiac arrest. And it's a tough problem to solve. Without intervention, a cardiac arrest victim has only 10 minutes to live. And brain damage begins several minutes before that. Even the best EMS systems in the country are challenged by those response time realities. There's just very little room for error. This excruciatingly short window of opportunity is exactly why most cardiac arrest victims do not survive. Today, more than ever, citizens helping citizens, bystander response, is the very best way to strengthen the chain of survival. It was obvious to me how those firefighters knew about that emergency while I didn't, even though I was so much closer than they were. They have radios, they're dispatched to nearby events. They don't need to see someone in need to help them. Now, I didn't have a radio, but I had my cell phone. And I imagine, like most of you, you have your cell phone with you almost all the time. And that was an aha moment for me. I thought, could we use someone's cell phone, just like a firefighter's radio, and alert them to a nearby emergency using the GPS and location capabilities of the phone? You know, a cell phone is essentially a radio. The local 911 center knows the location of the emergency, knows the type of the emergency. That's how the firefighters are prompted. What if simultaneously, with the dispatch of the firefighters or the paramedics, we could notify nearby professionals and other trained citizens of a nearby need for CPR? If we could do that, we could greatly improve the odds of early CPR and early defibrillation and begin to bend the curve on outcomes. And this was a big idea, to crowdsource Good Samaritans. So I wanted the local 911 center to dispatch citizens to cardiac emergencies. Now, not everybody thought it was a good idea, especially when I described it like that. But I really was quite committed to this idea. But what I found with an idea like this, there was a lot of people that wanted to tell me why it wouldn't work. I heard that so much that I began to think there's something about human nature that when you hear a big idea, that you look for a reason why it won't work. I heard things like, we don't need crowds of people at cardiac arrests. It's logical. But reality was, 2/3 of the time, when paramedics arrive, CPR is not in progress. 2/3 of the time. So a crowd of people who were CPR trained, willing to help, seemed like a fantastic idea to me. It didn't seem like bad news at all. I heard a lot about privacy. You want to send citizens to medical emergencies. Well, that would be a HIPAA violation. And I would think, people in cardiac arrest don't have a pulse. They're not breathing. They're about as near death as you can be without being dead. Privacy is not a big deal to them. I heard a lot about CPR, training. Would these people really be CPR trained? Would people just sign up and say they were CPR trained? And I had just the opposite concern, that would people who were CPR trained, would off-duty professionals carry an app like this and actually respond? Would that work? Would they go? Would they have the courage? Would they have the willingness to do that? I wasn't worried that people would cheat to be able to do CPR. That seemed very unlikely to me. CPR is easier than ever to learn. If they really wanted to do CPR that bad, they would get trained. The other thing that I found is people would compare the idea, and maybe all new ideas, they would compare it to perfection as opposed to what was really going on today. So they would say, I don't know about sending citizens to nearby events. A lot of things could go wrong. I said, well, let's think about what we're doing today. For more than 50 years, we've told people, if they see someone collapse, cardiac arrest, lay them on their back, kneel by their side, put your hands in the center of their chest, and press hard and fast, 2 inches. Breathe into their mouth. Get an AED off the wall, put electrodes, bare their chest, and then put electrodes on both sides of their heart, and deliver a pretty violent shock, 1,000 volts. I don't mean to be too dramatic in that. That's exactly what you should do. But none of that seemed like it was exactly risk-free. All I was trying to do is let people know that their skill was needed next door. And it seemed pretty incremental. But that said, I did understand that I needed some way to vet this idea. Is your good idea, is your big idea a good idea? Because you see, you get a lot of opposition and you can rationalize it all away, right? You've seen that I can do that. And so you have to have some way to really know. So what I did is I thought about who would really know if this idea was a good idea? Who owned this space? So for me, that was like the American Heart Association, the American Red Cross, tech executives, medical directors. So I figured out who I really needed to talk to, and that's who I went out and talked to about the idea. What I found is the feedback that I initially got was very different than the feedback that I got from this more appropriately comprised group. So who you talk to matters. Those that are in your maybe routine circles, there just may be a little less diversity of thought. There might be more self-interest, more conflicts, maybe people that you work with that you might run an idea by. So that was very valuable to pick who you talk to and just not accept that whoever you talk to was going to give you sound advice. So there's a few things that I learned as I was pursuing my idea that I think might help you in your pursuit of your big idea. The first one is don't expect everyone to love your idea like you do. Expect criticism and critique, and just accept that as part of the creative process. And number 2, build a broad, well-thought-out sounding board. And make sure that that covers all angles of your idea. For me, that was tech and medical and public safety. And really listen to this group. This is where you're going to get your honest feedback. And number 3, realize that acceptance of a new idea takes time and hard work. No matter how good your idea is, it's not going to sell itself. That's always going to take you. And if you need a little bit more inspiration, tonight or in the future, open a browser and search Pulse Point Saves. And you'll see that an idea can really impact the lives of many other people. And that's the heart of a big idea. Thank you.